In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a really nice pallet wood bowl. This is a fairly simple project, but can be quite time consuming. I started out by dimensioning all of my lumber. I wanted the pieces to be 15 centimetres each, so that's what I did. There was some bow in some of the boards, so I had to make sure that that wasn't too much, and if it was, I discarded those pieces. However, for the majority of the pieces it was absolutely fine, as the bow didn't affect the glue up. I clamped the pieces down to the workbench though to ensure I cut them accurately. I then glued all the pieces up using Gorilla Glue and made sure to wipe over all the edges so there wasn't too much glue squeeze out. I used F-style clamps to clamp it up and used some big F-style clamps as well to make sure it didn't go out of alignment. I then used my tenon saw to cut the sides of the blank off to leave me with an octagonal blank, as this is far easier to turn. And pine is quite a hard wood to turn because it tears so much and you get a lot of tear out, so making an octagonal blank just makes more sense. I then mounted the blank onto the lathe and started turning it to round. I hadn't cut it very straight, as you can see, so it was bouncing around quite a lot, hence why there's a different camera angle here. I used my faithful round scraper to cut it, and then used 80 grit sandpaper, 120 grit sandpaper, 180 grit, 240 and 400 grit to make sure it was really smooth. I took the tailstock off the lathe to make it easier to drill the hole, and also so that I could get a bigger swing with my tool. I used my faithful round scraper as well to hollow out the inside. This is where a lot of my problems were encountered, because as you can see I was turning the wall, and every time I turned the thickness to the wall it teared a load of it away, so as you'll see a bit later on I had to find a remedy to this. As you can see from this clip, there was quite a lot of tear out, so I tried to remedy that by using a skew chisel and putting up against the face of the wall to make a smaller bowl, but hopefully get rid of the tear out. Here's a really good shot when I stopped the lathe there of all the tear out. So I was using the skew to make this bowl slightly smaller in its depth, just so that I could remove all this tear out. It didn't take too long to do, but unfortunately I did lose some depth to the bowl. I also used the skew chisel just to make a nice chamfer on the outside and the inside as well, just because I wanted to try something different for a change. As you can see, the shavings are very different from a skew chisel to a round scraper because they cut in different ways. In the future I might do a video on the different types of cuts and how they work, because I think that'd be quite an interesting video, because the shavings that you get from a skew chisel and a round scraper are very, very different. I then just continued hollowing out the bowl using the round scraper and just taking nice shallow passes to ensure I didn't get massive tear out. As you can see, there was a small catch there. That was the only thing. I did find there are a few catches because with pine you just take the material away so quickly because it's such a soft wood. As you can see, the amount of sawdust flying out of here. This whole bowl probably took me an hour to turn, and bear in mind this is probably my second biggest bowl. And then it took me about half an hour to sand it flat on the bottom because obviously all the pallet wood was uneven on the bottom surface. So as you'll see later on, I had to use my sander to remedy that. Whilst I'm hollowing this, I thought I would tell you about Wood Turner's Blend. So as you know, I've been working on this wood turning finish for about a month or two now, and if you follow me on Instagram, I've put a link into that account there. It's Wood Turner's Blend, and I'll also link it to this video because I now have an Instagram account for it, and the Etsy account should go live somewhere in July. I'm hoping to launch it mid-July, maybe something like July the 15th, something like that. I've ordered all of the labels and everything that I designed, so I've just got to wait for those to come in a post, and when they come I can start packaging them all up, get the Etsy store photos live, and start selling the product. I'm really hoping it should be a big success, as I've worked really hard on it, and I really do think it's a really nice deluxe finish for wood turned items. If you want to see some photos of that, I can put some on my Instagram account if you DM me on there. I then sanded with 80 grit all the way up to 120, 180, 240 and 400, like I do on all the bowls. This just makes such a better finish because it means you don't get any of those horrible tool marks. I applied some finish as you just saw and then started parting it off the lathe. I wasn't confident enough to part this properly due to it being so soft and it would just tear everywhere, so I used my tenon saw to do it, and then as you can see this was the remedy for getting it flat. I used my belt sander for about half an hour to try and get this flat. It's still not perfectly flat as a bowl goes, but I was happy enough with it. I was using an 80 grit belt on the belt sander, which is a fairly coarse belt, so I then moved over to my handheld sander and used a 180 grit pad to get a really nice finish. Here's some photos of how the bowl turned out. I'm really happy with it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, feel free to share this video around, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.